Welcome to the Wright Perspective, the podcast where we review classic television shows and movies and decide whether they are classics from the Wright perspective. Every once in a while, we review current content because it's linked to content that is considered a classic, or because there is something about that new release that lets us know it's going to be a classic down the line. Today is one of those special days because we are going to review a movie that has just come out a few days ago on September 16, 2022, The Woman King. It's a historical epic film about the agogie, the all-female warrior unit who protected the West African kingdom of Dahomey during the 17th to 19th centuries. This is the perfect way to kick off season 3 of The Wright Perspective.
Woo! Fireworks.
Maybe by season 4 we'll have real sound effects and you won't have to do that. Season 4 is going to be our big year. The film is directed by Gina Prince-Bythewood and written by Dana Stevens, based on a story she wrote with Maria Bello. The film stars Viola Davis, Thuso Mbedu, Lashana Lynch, Sheila Atim, and John Boyega. The film had a budget of $50 million and made $19 million just in the opening weekend alone. For some, this cast and these dollars would be enough to affirm that this movie is on its way to being a classic. And time will tell. But today, we will determine whether it is a classic from the Wright perspective. We'll do a recap, discuss the movie, and then we'll take a voting symbol. We'll do a recap, discuss the movie, and then we'll take a vote using a voting symbol picked especially for this discussion. Let's start with intros. Kick us off, bro.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Wright. I'm the oldest.
I'm Genia Wright. I'm the middle.
Hi, I'm Brittany Wright, and I'm the youngest.
And y'all, this is season 3.
Okay. Wait, Uno nose straight.
Before we even get into the movie, I just have to ask y'all, like, what are your feelings going into season 3 of our podcast? Reflecting, we've had 2 great seasons now with more than 20 episodes per season. How are y'all feeling? What are your hopes? What are your expectations for this season?
I'm looking forward to season 37.
Yeah.
Listen, I want one of our seasons to make $19 million in one weekend.
I know that's right.
I'm
know
like,
that's right.
Yes, Viola Davis. Yes, John Boyega. Listen, I love it. No, I'm expecting great things, and I'm just loving. I talked to one of my friends, and you don't know who's like low key watching your stuff. They're not going to tell you every time. And my friend was like, you know what? Since I've been watching you and your siblings, shout out to Ashley. She was like, there's so many movies I've never seen. She was like, or I forgot about them. Yes. She was like, so I've really been appreciating you guys' podcast. So Yay! That made me feel really good just knowing that she is watching it, is a faithful watcher. Now, Ashley doesn't like long videos, but she will put it on in the background as she's doing things. So thank you, Ashley.
Oh, love that. Love that. Thank you, Ashley. I have
I would love to be background noise. Those are my favorite videos.
They're the best. Videos.
Totally.
That you don't have to look at them and see what's going on, but you're still catching it and you're cracking up with it as you're walking around, making comments like, that's so true.
Yeah, to be a part of the fabric of someone's day or the fabric of someone's household. That's a really lovely compliment. So I love that. I love that. And I have a bunch of friends that are definitely regular watchers, regular listeners. And so we're so grateful for y'all. And this season, we're going to do something we have never really done before, which is promote our podcast. And so we're so excited to be on this journey. Well, y'all, let's hop in. It was really serendipitous in terms of like the timing for the release of The Woman King and the timing for the drop of our first episode for this season. And so it really, truly just was a perfect way for us to kick off. And so the first thing we need to do, y'all, is pick voting symbols. If you're new to our podcast, we always pick voting symbols. We tailor them to the content that we are using. And also, if you're new to our podcast, we do a recap at the top. And so there are spoilers. This is a spoiler alert. And we do that because generally our content is old. People haven't seen it in a while. But even with the newer content, we still do the recap. So that's a spoiler alert for y'all. Let's hop into the voting symbols. Y'all, I have voting symbol options, and I have one to recommend. And I'm pretty sure it's like so like awesome. You guys can be like, oh, we don't need to have any further discussion. We don't need to like really have any additional, chit chat about this, because yesterday I picked the perfect voting symbol. And the voting symbol.
With you being crazy. I didn't know that's where we were going.
It's a perfect middle child lead
up. It is. It's so good.
My recommendation for our voting symbol, y'all, is the partial shark's tooth. So, there was a child in this movie that had been abandoned, and her mother had put a little piece of shark's tooth under her skin, right behind on her shoulder, and it helped them to reunite as adults. And I just think it's a perfect symbol for this film, because the whole reason, and the actual woman that had to give up the baby, was General Nanisca, who was played by Viola Davis. And that is, when we meet her, we realize that she is a very seasoned warrior. And you already know she has given up so much to live the life that she has lived, to be a general in this army. And then to learn that she had given up a baby along the way, because you aren't allowed to have children when you are a part of this particular warrior group. And it turns out that the child was even as a result of rape. And so yet another burden that General Nanesca had been grappling with, over the course of her life and her career. And but it was her decision to say, you know what, in my fighting spirit, I know I cannot raise this child, but in my fighting spirit, I'm going to put a mark on this child, so that if we ever reunite, I will know her. It enabled her to be able to reunite with her daughter. So that, to me, that fighting spirit, that resilience, I think that is such a through line in the movie, that the shark's tooth is a perfect voting symbol for today's podcast. Bam.
Whoa. Well, you got my vote.
Yes.
Excellent.
Did you come up with any, sis?
Well, you all already know where my mind was going, because I didn't think about it until right now. That's never going to change. Any seasons that are happening, we get into season 37, I'm going to forget we need a voting symbol.
I'm going to remember this clip for season 37.
Totally. And I still won't like your attitude at that point, just like I don't like it right now.
Let's you love it. Guns.
Okay, move on.
Gunpowder.
Let's
spears. Ant heels. Fighting scenes. The beach. Water. Ships.
Oh boy.
Shackles.
All right, so let's see.
There are so many to choose from.
All right. Well, now that the whole viewing and listening audience is disappointed, let us move on with the voting symbol.
What did you say? You wanted more? Tense. John Boyega and his Soul Glow hairstyle. Listen,
do not hate.
I said, come on, John Boyega with this girl powder.
Oh, he played that part.
Listen,
let's go with Shark's Tooth, y'all. And so y'all, at the end of this podcast, the Woman King will get 0, 1, 2, or 3 Shark's Teeth, and it has to get 3 in order to be considered a classic from the Wright perspective. Okay. So let's hop into our recap. Now, The Woman King is set in the West African kingdom of Dahomey during the 1820s. The kingdom is beautiful and vibrant and ruled by King Geso, who's played by John Boyega.
Hello.
He is newer in role, and it turns out that when he inherited the crown, he also inherited an oppressive relationship with a neighboring kingdom, the Oyo. Okay. The Dahomey have to give tributes like crops and goods and captives to the Oyo in order to keep some level of peace between them. The Oyo are also major proponents of the sale of African captives to Europeans for the slave trade. The Dahomey participate too, but with less enthusiasm. And there is at least one person in the kingdom of Dahomey that wants to stop this practice entirely, and that is Nanisca, played by Viola Davis, general of the Agogie, an army of well-trained female warriors that protect the kingdom, supported by an infantry of male warriors. Nanisca eventually convinces the king to do whatever it takes to get out from under the thumb of the Oyo and to stop selling captives to the Europeans. Nanisca hates the idea of treating people like goods to be sold, and she also hates the Oyo because 20 years prior, she had been captured by them while in battle and raped and tortured repeatedly until she was able to escape. Nanisca is fierce, but you can see she is still carrying that pain with her, along with all of the pains of battle. To get ready for the war that is to come and to replenish the ranks after some recent losses in battle, the Agogie begin training a new class of warriors, including a young woman named Nawi, played by Thuso Mbedu, who was actually gifted to the king by her father when she wouldn't allow herself to be given to a husband. The training is intense and includes the physical and psychological training needed to be a warrior. Along the way, the women, some that have joined by choice and some that have not, also bond and become a family. Eventually, there is an epic battle, and when the dust settles, the Oyo have fled defeated, but they manage to take a few of the Agogie as captives they intend to sell to the slavers, including Nawi. Well, Nanisca ain't having that. She tells the king that she is going to get her soldiers. And the king tells her not to go because he intends to name her as his partner in ruling the kingdom the very next day. At first, she was going to honor the king's orders because that's who she is. But then she thought about Nawi. And you might be thinking, what's so special about Nawi? Well, good question. It turns out that Nanisca had a child as a result of the rape she had experienced at the hands of the Oyo. She had the child in secret, and her friend put the child up for adoption. That child was Nawi. So Nanisca defies the king's order and heads to save Nawi and the other Agogie that had been captured. A few of her fellow warriors from the Agogie and the male infantry come along without her even asking. When they arrive at the slavers' camp, they realize that it would not be enough to rescue the captives. They needed to burn the whole place down and kill all the slavers. And so they did. And at the end of the movie, we've lost many of the Agogie warrior women that we have spent time with during the course of the film. But Nanisca and Nawi live to fight another day. When they arrive back in Dahomey, victorious in yet another battle, instead of punishing Nanisca for obeying him, he makes her the woman king, and she sits on a throne beside him. The end. Y'all, this one, I'm going to tell you, the first draft of the recap was 2 pages. Okay. And then I said, Janiyah, that's too long.
Oh, you were telling them the whole movie.
Yes, I was. But that's
and then they walked down the street.
2 minutes later. Yeah. But it's just I'm only mentioning that to say that even with this recap, which tells the main beats, there's still so much to be discovered in this film, and so many other pieces that aren't named in the recap. But sis, I think you need to kick us off because I know you, well, first of all, you suggested that we do the Warrior King, which was super smart. And then second of all, you've seen it twice. I've only seen it once so far, going to see it again tomorrow with you.
Yes.
So sis, you got to kick us off. Please tell us what your reactions were to the general story, the story that was being presented in this movie.
I appreciate this movie because I'm sure it's not the first one, right? Because we have things like Roots and things like that really speak to what happened on the shores of Africa as they were bringing individuals to become enslaved. And the parts of it that we don't want to have conversation about. And so instead of it just being like, oh, there were slave camps, no, we get a chance to dive into a tribe that is a part of this slave trade for reasons of prosperity from a prior king, but even now, just as protection for their own people, but they're having a moral issue with it. And they don't like it because they're like, even if we're not even selling our own tribe, it is still people and we don't need to be a part of this. Let's sell palm oil. We have so much of it. We're great at making it. Like we can still make money from selling palm oil. And there was a couple of other things that Naniska named. And so I think just seeing this conversation of what was happening, a representation of it, right? Of course, we know that's not the whole story, but just of what was happening on the shores of Africa in these tribes and in these countries. It was just nice to be able to see that part of the story, because oftentimes they love telling the other part after they docked in Delaware, you know. They love telling that part of just, and that is, it's almost like slavery is like this great fantasy. Like they just love it. It's everywhere, to and fro. And so it was nice seeing something where it's like, no, we're free. We're our own people. We are fighting to get our people back. We are fighting to get them to be free. So I just appreciated that part of it. And I know I could get into the woman power piece of it, but really when I was watching it, I didn't feel woman power. Like, oh yes, I'm a Black woman. Let me get it. I didn't feel that. I felt power for my people and the diaspora, because we are far spread because of the transatlantic slave trade. So I just it was powerful for me just to see those pieces.
That's so good, sis. It's so good, sis. And that resonated for me too. I mean, it's so great to have an opportunity to just see on screen what we know to be true, which is that there were true, very real and developed civilizations in African countries before they were invaded and colonized. And it's great to see that on screen. Bro, what about you? What's your initial just thinking when you think about like that, the plot, the story, that general premise and the way that the storyline played out?
I'm more of like, if a movie is going to go fantastical, I'm like, go fantastical. You know what I'm saying? Or if it's going to be real, you get as close to real as possible. And I would have preferred to see a story that spoke to how, closer to how this actually played out.
So when you say that, what do you mean?
Well, the Dahomey tribe or the Dahomey kingdom was responsible for a huge part of the slave trade before and after the events that were depicted in this movie. So to depict them as anti-slavery, that's just not what happened. So, I wish I would have, and like I said, this is my personal opinion, I would have preferred to see, well, first of all, if this movie was going to be close to reality, it had to be rated R. It should have been a rated R movie that really depicted the story and told it. And that's what I would have preferred myself.
Yeah, I see what you mean, bro. I think like movies that start from that are inspired by a true story, but then fictionalize. If it feels like something that's like a pretty common thing to do, especially in like the epic films. I feel like fictionalizing on top of like a basic historical truth is something that you see in Hollywood and in big movies. I did though, but bro, I mean, everything you're saying in terms of the facts of it are true. Even like some of the main characters' names, like Naniska, Naniska is named after a warrior that character is named after a warrior that actually existed. But at the same time, as Aubrey was saying, there's no evidence that there was, a kind of like altruistic drive in the Dahomey Kingdom to stop the enslavement of people. So that's the truth. But I honestly, I don't struggle with films, kind of starting from a truth and then fictionalizing on top, especially since none of us were there. And I will also say, like, one of the things that will always be true about history is that it is written by the victors. And so all of the accounts that we look to for what really happened and what the real feelings were, how did the Dahomey actually feel at the time, what were their actual priorities at the time, it's written by white people,
some Spaniard or some Portuguese person.
The documentation is from the people that defeated them. And so because we can't know the truth, I understand that sometimes, using a creative, using their imagination to think about what might have been happening, I appreciate that. And sometimes it's all we can do with history. So there's actually a great article that I found, bro, that talks exactly about what you were naming, about the fact that this story is an embellishment of the story of the Dahomey women soldiers. It's a Washington Post story. It posted on September 20th, and it's called "What the Woman King Gets Wrong and Right About Dahomey Warriors." And it's written by Ana Lucia Araujo and Suzanne Preston Blyer. And I'll just read one piece from it. And it really speaks to what you were talking about, bro. It says, as many motion pictures do, the film distorts and idealizes the history of Dahomey's women warriors. They were not freedom fighters as portrayed in the movie. Rather, like other West African women, they were trying to survive in the tumultuous period of the Atlantic slave trade. Nevertheless, the film does help to dismantle some long-standing stereotypes associated with the agogie by restoring their agency and challenging the historical European accounts of them simply as bloody warriors. This is actually probably a great time to talk about some of the details of the story. So we've talked about now that general premise and how it's like it starts from a place of true history and is fictionalized. Well, one of the characters, true from history, the king. So King Gezo was a real king in the Dahomey kingdom, and he was played by John Boyega. Let's talk about some of these performances. We have Viola Davis as General Naniska. We had Thuso Mbedu as Nawi, Lashana Lynch as agogie, and Sheila Atim as Amenza, and again, John Boyega as King Gezo. The list goes on. But let's talk about some of the performances. Did any stand out? Any ups, downs, reactions?
I really liked Nawi. I think she did a great job. I think everybody did a great job. I really liked that they leaned into the script, they leaned into the roles, and they leaned into what they were trying to convey. Nawi, for me, one of the scenes that really resonated with me was when it was close towards the end of the movie. And it was when, I'm about to say her name wrong, Izogie was killed.
Played by Lashana Lynch.
Yes. And that part in her tears, I just felt like that was a cry from every Black person in the diaspora. Like it was just a representation of what is happening right now. Like it just, what's going on for those that were, even those who were a part of it, even those who were just people who were, I was out doing what I needed to do one day, selling my goods, and all of a sudden I'm a good. Like this is a very terrible day. Like, so you to hear, because just as a people, all together, we are torn and very much trying to pick up the pieces of narratives that have been told by white liars, and also realizing and understanding that there are pieces of our history that are not super awesome. They're not fun to look on. It's not fun for a lot of people when you're first hearing like, oh, well, you know, they were selling the people to the Europeans. And it's like, a lot of people didn't want to hear that part, but it's like, guess what? That's a part of it. It's true. It's like, you don't want to have that conversation, but you were having it. And so to her wailing, which really is what I think is the best way to say it, was it brought me to tears, because I think sometimes there just aren't words that you can say when there's a pain so deep. And it was a pain, it was a confusion, it was a hurt. And it was not just for her passing, but her friend dying, her comrade, the one who trained her mentor. It wasn't just that. It was just like, you could just feel it in the situation. Like, why do we even have to do this? Like, what is going on? Like, that her wailing in that moment for me was huge. And it meant so much to me for the movie. It just really brought something out. And I said, listen, if nobody gets an award, she needs to get an award based off just that part.
I totally agree, sis. That Thuso Mbedu, girl, you all right by me. Because let me just say,
you could literally play 17 ages.
Oh my gosh. I mean, so she's actually in her, is it her early 30s, sis? She's in her early 30s.
I think she's like 31 or 32.
And she was like playing a 19-year-old, you know, so.
A 19-year-old that looked 14.
So,
yeah. So
you are all the ages.
Shout out to Melanin.
Okay?
Exactly. She definitely don't look 30. That is
at all.
But
at the same time, I mean, she was playing
we needed her in some of them other hood movies. We would.
Right.
We needed
where they had senior citizens playing high school students.
Yeah,
we needed you in Greece.
Yeah.
We needed you in Greece.
Where were you?
Because Greece was struggling.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were. Y'all, I have to plus one what you said, sis. She really, to me, she killed it. I mean, it was like, part of it was she was playing a youthful character, but the character also had been through quite a bit, you know. And so we didn't know all of her backstory when we first met her. And over the course of the movie, you learn that she had been in an orphanage. You learn that she had been adopted by a family that, you know, really never treated her well. You know, we learned that her father tried to give her away to various husbands and cared, you know, so little about her that he then gave her away to the king when she wouldn't kind of like do what he wanted her to do. And even before we learned all those details, we were seeing a level of complexity in the way she was showing up. You know, I think sometimes when it's a teen character, it's like, oh, I'm rebellious because I'm a teen, you know, but that wasn't this. It was, I have something inside of me that's fighting to be free and to show up. And everything around me is trying to stifle it. And I can't let that happen. I don't know how to make it. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to bring it to life, but I'm not going to allow it to be stifled. And that's what I was seeing in her character. And I thought she just did such a great job. And we have to shout out to Viola Davis. You know, I got to say that Viola Davis, I will be interested to see, as I was watching the movie, I was trying to assess the accents of the people that I know are, you know, who I know were really, you know, had probably learned accents for the movie. And honestly, I got to tell you, Viola Davis, once again, you come through to me with flying stars. I thought, in addition to her portrayal, you don't think that in addition to her, the emotional complexity of this character, that had to be the spine, okay, the spine for this whole tribe of women warriors in a kingdom that was basically under attack, you know, and being victimized in so many ways, with waning prosperity. You know, we were getting a sense of that as well. You know, she had to just have the fortitude to continue to be a leader. And even the king was like relying on her because she was such great counsel out of all the people in the council, she had his ear because she was so well reasoned in her way of looking at the world and what needed to be done. And I thought Viola Davis did a great job, and I have to shout out one more person, which was Lashana Lynch. Well, first, let me just say, I always enjoy me some Lashana Lynch. Okay. I mean, I saw her, and I'm not a person that has seen 007 movies. I just need y'all to know, like, I can't act like I know all the, I can't even remember what 007.
There are.
What is his name?
James Bond.
Thank you, James Bond.
There are 8 million of those movies.
There's 8 million. I think that's the only one I saw. But let me just say, she knocked me out in that movie, and she knocked me out again because she's so natural. She's so deep, like she's so well embodies whatever character she's in. And she ends up somehow being able to have really fun moments, but also moments that are so gut-wrenching and hard.
She did make me laugh out loud a couple times.
Yeah,
they did. I appreciate always when a serious movie can have those moments of relief where you're able to just chuckle a bit. It's like, there's so much happening right now.
So much.
Can I just smile just a tinge? I will say, shout out to all of the wives. Let me tell you something.
Of the king.
Yes. When John Boyega was walking down that hall, he was like, my love, my love, my love. I was like, yes. All of those are your love. And the woman that played Ashanti, I think that was the queen's name. That was like, I guess, the main queen.
Jamie Lawson.
She did an amazing job as well. I
think it's just Shantae.
Was Shantae? Okay, Shantae.
Shanti, yeah.
Shanti, thank you. She did an awesome job at making you want to beat her up. Yeah. And I was like,
totes.
And let me tell you something. I don't know what the casting call. Listen, I don't know what the casting call was, but it was like beautiful Black people. Like, I feel like that was how they said, like, if you're beautiful and Black, come try out. And it was like, okay, we're on our way. And so all of the queens were gorgeous. And I was like, yes. And how even just within the agogie, how they were gorgeous.
Agogie.
And thank you, agogie, and how they were beautiful, and the variation in skin tone, how it was all represented. Not like, and I know this is not, but just natural hair in general.
Yes.
I was just like, in the fullness, and I'm sure because it's, it's cameras, there has to be makeup and stuff like that. But it didn't look so makeup that it looked like it was about to take someone's face off and they had a whole new face when you got done. It's like, no. And then to think about the background of this, I only watched a little bit of it, but their training videos, I was just like, oh, you're training with a spear. What? It's just...
Thank you for calling it a training video, because it wasn't.
I mean, there were videos of them training.
Yeah, but they weren't training videos. We were watching training sequences. When you say training video, you're like, oh, let's go into the conference room, and the HR is about to put something on the...
Welcome to the dome.
Exactly.
I think we all knew what she was saying.
You're in agogie now. You're in agogie now.
I think we all knew what Brittany was saying.
Well,
what is sexual harassment?
Brittany, you are giving Genia more power right now.
Oh my gosh. Y'all, what about John Boyega? Can I just say, I found him to be a delight.
Which one was that?
The king.
Okay.
Okay. Because let me just say, like, I thought he did such a good job of like showing us like the complexity of like being a new king. He's trying to understand his power, how to wield it, how to balance it. Okay. And I appreciate it when a leader can take counsel. I really do, and I felt like that is what he showed us. He showed us that he wasn't trying to do everything just because he was the king. But at the same time, when somebody started to cross the line a little bit too much, he did remind them, oh, I am the king. So don't get it twisted here for a little minute. I'm a just king. Okay. And I might be taking some feedback but I'm making the final decision. And I thought he just did a good job of showing that. And this was just like I would say this is another character where it's like there were moments of like levity where it was like truly you're laughing out loud, but then there were other parts where he was making the decisions and you're just impressed.
And the funny parts weren't ridiculous,
right?
Like it was appropriate. You know what I mean? Level of just breaking it up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But you never felt like any of the characters were going outside of themselves. Or anything like that.
Yes.
That one, we have to shout out to the guy that was playing, I don't know if he was like an announcer or an assistant to the king, but that part where Santi was like, she talking about Aniska having the ear of the king. And like the guy was like, he was like, but whenever everything was happening, she saved his life and got him to the throne. He was like, you hid in the cupboard. And then just walked away.
You talking about the guy,
the eunuch in the castle.
Okay.
Yeah, he was good.
He did a great job. It's just like, and I think someone I appreciated, she was the tallest agogie, and she was the one that was kind of like I guess the second in command.
Right.
She what is her real name? She did
let me find it.
An amazing job.
So good
at being someone who
Sheila Atim.
Keeping
the character's name was Amenza.
Okay. I appreciated her so much in being a warrior, and she was showing that range of person. The warrior, also the caretaker, as she was giving her something to drink whenever Aniska was having her nightmare, and giving her something to drink, and Aniska laying her shoulder on her just showing this range of person. And even just a conversation when she got upset with Aniska and Aniska had yelled at her, she didn't yell back. Well, she yelled back, but it was in a way more so of, let's correct, I am not your servant.
Yeah.
Like this conversation.
Make it plain. Yep.
Absolutely. And I love that.
Okay, so this is now a good segue to some of the themes that were covered in the movie that are, much broader and more universal. We've already touched on some of them, but being a child of rape, this is an experience this is a real experience that people are having. And I thought to myself about, gosh, though, like I personally feel like I'm not aware of any content that's grappling with that story, deeply. And now again, we all know. Okay, yeah, that's right, because Benson's child is because
Benson is a child.
That's right. That's right.
I'm just going to smile and I don't know who they're talking about.
Well, this is Olivia on Law and Order SVU.
I have no idea who they're talking
Mariska
about.
Hargitay.
If you ever start watching SVU, Britt, you're going to be watching it for like hours and hours.
Well, I was going to say, like, I was about to say, I stopped watching.
It's on all the time.
I stopped watching Law and Order SVU around season 17.
Yeah.
And so I probably have missed some of the story because I think they are literally on season 25.
Well, they have 18, they have 18 versions. First of all, Law and Order, then it's Law and Order Criminal Intent, Law and Order SVU. They have a new one that just came out.
Exactly.
They have so many.
Nope.
Well, the point is, y'all, this is a real part of the human experience, and that we need content that will dig into this and help us to grapple with this, and this is a part of the kind of narrative that can be shamed out of discourse. And the reality is we need to be able to hold people in these themes and in these conversations and in these experiences. And another one that came through in this movie was there was a biracial character. And he got cut from the recap. Okay. Just because the movie
there's so much.
It was so much. It was so much. So this character, his name was Malik, and he was played by Jordan Bolger. And so he was actually.
Did Jordan Bolger have on makeup? It looked like, let me say what it looked like to me before you answer. It looked like he was either lightened or darkened, but I couldn't tell if that was, and I never looked it up.
I just Googled him pretty quickly. Well, let the record show he's beautiful. But also that's a fine man. But so
I don't really feel any argument there.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, there was a
young
at the top of
he's
every
too young
casting
for us
list
to
was,
date.
are you fine and black?
Totally.
Come on down.
He's too young for us to date. Oh, but not that I would want to date him. This painting is by my boyfriend James. Ta-da!
It's okay, James. We have your back.
No, he had on a wig.
I thought that was his skin tone.
He had on a wig. His hair
that was definitely a wig. Oh, I said, come on, Lake's friend.
Well, maybe that's why it looked a little not strange, but something looked created, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. You know what I'm saying? So maybe
it was probably that wig.
Well, you know what, bro?
Wet and wavy too.
I'm gonna make a reach. I'm gonna make a reach here, bro. And I'm gonna say that what you were probably seeing come through was him struggling with his own identity. Okay.
Oh, you made that
and
very
that's
deep.
Why you're like, oh, something about him isn't resonating as like being fully in his truth. And that's because he was trying to discover what it was.
So you just went Mariana Trench deep on this thing.
I'm just making a guess. I'm just making a guess about what was coming through for you, bro, because this character, he had a white father. He had been raised in Portugal, okay? And his mother had been an enslaved woman from Dahomey. And so he had come to the kingdom of Dahomey with slavers because they were people that he knew. They were people that he grew up with. But he was not there to participate in the slave trade, but he was clearly there. And what actually happens during the movie is that he realizes that by being present and doing nothing, he is part of the problem. His presence does become problematic. And he then does join the side of the fight that the agogie are on. And he ends up freeing some of the enslaved people.
And they drown someone.
Yeah, I mean, one of the slavers that he had known his whole life, a white man, he was so intent on the business of enslaving Africans. At some point, Jordan Bolger's character just couldn't abide it anymore, kind of being complicit, and he freed some of the enslaved people, and they of course attacked the person that had held them captive by gunpoint, which was a friend of Malik's, Jordan Bolger's character. Malik also had a little tablespoon of a love story with Nawe. And I will say of the whole, if there was any part of this in my perspective was a part of the movie, when I think about the story, this was the piece that I think probably was unnecessary. I think the true love story in the film was the women. It was the agogie warriors. And it was about this kingdom, and it was between the agogie warriors, and I would say between the warriors and the kingdom. Those were the love stories to me for the movie. And then we had this little one, which was like Nawe, and Malik having some attraction and romantic feelings. They can't be together for many reasons. He lives in Portugal, she lives in the kingdom of Dahomey, but also as an agogie, she's not allowed to take a mate. She's not allowed to have a romantic partner. And so they can't be together. The good thing though,
even like she could go with him.
No.
You know what I mean? Because like if she in every other part of the world, you know what I mean?
He had to buy her to even get her off the auction block.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean, that was the part we didn't really need that love story from my perspective, but the good thing that came out of it was that they were able to have an intimate conversation where Nawi learned some of the things he had overheard about what the Oyo were about to do in their attack. Yeah. And so that was, to me, the only way that love story actually served the movie. It was to give the Agogie that bit of insight that Malik had, they wouldn't have gotten any other way except through that little, sneaky conversation he had with Nawe.
Yeah, when they had that conversation, I was really scared. I only thought the worst. I was like, he's about to rape her in the forest. Don't go. Yeah. I didn't think anything good when they were about to have that meeting. And I was like, okay. I did. I went, because I mean, all I'm thinking of is just what has just been happening. Like, you're seeing the flashbacks from the Niska, and you're just like, don't leave the kingdom by yourself.
Don't do it.
No good can happen. No. All horrible things are going to happen. And so, but when it was like just this conversation, so I'm going to ask it. Do you all think they did it?
Of course. I thought it was implied.
Oh, you think they did?
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell.
Well, I thought.
I mean, she was wrapped up in that blanket. I was like, if there's a woman king too,
he was out of the room. He was out of the room with no shirt on.
Yeah.
He could have been sleeping on the porch because he had such good manners.
Well,
she didn't have no pajamas.
I think in the Woman King 2, there's going to be a slightly darker baby.
a slightly light baby. Oh, look at this.
No, it's like a three-quarter.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. We got into one of our Wright Perspective conversation jumbles in a moment where it felt like you were about to make a poignant point about James's work right there, and I felt like I really wanted to hear what you were about to say.
Oh, thanks, bro. Yeah. You're right.
I did want to hear what you were about to say.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, so I normally have a different painting sitting right here, but I put this one up specifically for this episode, for today's podcast. So my boyfriend, James Jorsling, is obviously a very talented painter, and I have so many of his works throughout my home. This is one of his newest pieces. It isn't titled, but it is, to me, it's a beautiful visual of community. And it is specifically Black community, and it is community that is in his vision of it is taking place in the motherland, and what I love about it is that it is joyful life. It's joyful life, and so much of the narrative we get is like tragedy and savagery, and this is civilization, and it's joy, and it's community. And thank you for bringing us to the painting, bro, because it's also a good segue to talk about the visuals in the film. I mean, I thought they did a really good job of showing us a beautiful landscape, showing us community engaging. And I also thought the way that they integrated the brightness and vibrance of the landscape with like these very vibrant costumes. And I did look up some pictures, to the extent that they exist for the Agogie historical, images. And they were definitely wearing more colorful costumes. And I appreciate that they honored that aesthetic in the film. So this is probably a good chance to talk about, bro, sis, what are your reactions to the environment?
It's so big, and a lot of the ways people travel was just by foot. And I love how they're like, you don't know how far they're going, but they just get out like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, it also gets you to be able to take it all to see it and everything. And it's straight barefoot, like
going.
Just going. But I don't, it's one of those movies that in a lot of ways makes you understand that there's a lot of research and stuff that you need to do, but it felt real.
Totally.
It felt like this is probably close to how it looked, how they traveled, how they lived, how they dressed. So it seemed like something that there was a lot of attention paid to that.
I agree. I would say one thing that did stand out to me was the water. I'm not a water person.
Really?
I am not a water person. I will.
Now is that, and we're not going to get sidetracked, I promise. But is that water period or like natural water? So like if you're at a resort, do you like the pool but not the ocean, or you just don't like water period?
I like looking at water. Dangling my toes. I'm very stereotypical when it comes to water.
And I love
in terms of being Black.
Pictures of it. Give me a great picture.
So you like for the background water.
I literally was just looking at some old photos when I was in Bermuda, and I was like, ooh, look at that water that I didn't touch. I didn't touch it. It was so gorgeous. I love the sounds of it. The sounds are amazing.
Just knowing
the waves
it's there,
crashing.
knowing it's there, protecting us, or keeping the earth fertile.
See, that's where I get messed up because it might come to flood. It might get a tsunami going. I don't want to be any parts. I don't want any parts of it. I don't want any parts.
I'll tell you, the first time I went out the country, I was very excited about going into the ocean. And when I stepped in there, I'm like, I don't know why anybody likes this. Because it's like you can feel the rocks and
it's too much.
I thought it was going to be like soft sand under there, like wet sand, but it's not. It's like,
I've experienced both.
I was about to say, I feel like it depends on the beach.
Where were you?
I've been on beaches in Bermuda,
all over the world. I don't even know,
but it was soft.
No, I've experienced very rocky. Because again, I never go actually all the way in. I'm only talking about that initial couple steps.
That's all I'm talking about.
Rocky, I felt like I was in St. Thomas when I felt rocky.
Yeah, I felt rocky. I've also been in a place where it was really full of seaweed, which was like, ugh, yuck.
Pick a different beach.
Now, see, and this is a lesson for everybody.
But I have experienced that very just refined sand, bro, deep in, like going into waist deep.
Next time you feel the refined sand, tell me, because this is a lesson for everybody. The first time I felt it, I was like, yeah, that's that. But I have every place I've traveled, I have never tried it again.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm sorry, I got to sidetrack.
You gotta walk in just a team what's going on.
But it also depends on what the season is for that place. Because there are time, or even the time of day, because sometimes it could be more,
But the point is, it exists. Yes. I thought, and I've been to a ton of places now, but that was I was like, well, I'm not doing this.
This is all the beaches.
Yep, I got
the Meanwhile, the beaches are like, you ain't gonna try me?
So I'm glad we had
beaches are mad.
But I don't want to I'm going to pull us. I took us off track. I'm going to get us back on track.
So it was the water. I thought the water was beautiful because the water was telling a part of the story. And so I thought that was beautiful as well.
I liked the I don't know what you want to call it, but like the chant or music singing session they had right before they were about to go to war. I like that. And also that they really did that. You know what I mean? Like as far as singing and things like that. So that one I thought was really striking in terms of a visual piece. You know what I'm saying?
Well, y'all, I feel like
wrap it on up.
Yeah, I feel like we covered all the categories. I do have a couple of very quick trivia bits. And they are about, it's really about a few little nuggets about the history of the agogie warriors. So in the movie, it was a pretty intimate group. But the truth is, historically at its peak, the all-female regiment had an impressive number of 8,000 warriors. And this is from an article in the Washington Post that I actually would encourage everyone to read. It was released on September 20th, and it's called What the Woman King Gets Wrong and Right About Dahome's Warriors. But let me read the last line of it, y'all, because I think this is a good place for us to wrap and go to the vote. Despite the expected pitfalls of a work of fiction, The Woman King does something the European colonizers never did. It remembers these women soldiers in a nuanced way that gives them back their humanity.
That's nice.
And I love that. I love that. So y'all, let's go to the vote. Bro, you're up. Does this movie get your shark's tooth?
It does not get my shark tooth. I don't see myself watching this. It didn't grab me like that. You know, it was interesting enough, but it wasn't. I probably felt that, you know, the same way you would see me watching Commando twice. Like, why would he, you know, like it was cool. It just didn't grab me like that.
And for me, this movie is definitely a classic. You know, I think it was a classic. One of the reasons is that it is Viola Davis as the lead. I love that there was a Black woman that was a lead that had her particular demographics, you know, her age, even her complexion. You know, it is unique and special and wonderful to see someone like Viola Davis as a leading character, but Viola Davis in particular, because she is such a woman that is, to me, she's such a breath of fresh air in terms of what we see and feel from Hollywood, in terms of personalities and the way that people show up. And so her being in it, to me, makes it a classic. And then the fact that she just had a stellar performance makes it a classic too. And then another reason is that, and again, it's just like when we watch The Harder They Fall. When we watched The Harder They Fall, we knew that, you know, because there, you all may remember there was some controversy about some of the casting in the movie and how true the casting was to the reality of the people who those people were. But we were all able to get over that because we said to ourselves, well, at a minimum, that movie made us start to go and Google about who those people were. It created an interest for us. And that's what this movie has done. This movie has now given us an opportunity to understand the agogie warriors and to understand them beyond the Black Amazon warriors that we have heard about before through Eurocentric historical storytelling. It's prompted a dialogue, you know, it's letting us know that the women warriors that we saw in movies like Black Panther, they're based on real societies that existed. And then the last reason I would make it a classic is because, you know, there's always something that can get a little tropish sometimes, I think, when we have movies that are going back to historical storytelling about Africa and West Africa in particular, as it relates to any story that is about like any part of the slave trade. And I just thought, there was nothing in this movie that felt tropish. It just felt like really truthful storytelling. And so for me, The Woman King does get my shark's tooth.
Thanks. I will tell you, I was conflicted. I was like, is this getting my shark's tooth or not? And I know the automatic conversation would be, she's going to see this movie for a third time tomorrow. They just said that at the beginning. The reason why I started having some conflicting views in my mind, because I was like, I think this movie is a moment in time. I don't think that it is going to be, you know, I don't know. Some people may dress up as a agogie for Halloween. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't But I also think that it's coming at a pivotal time because you have very Black movies coming out every month at the end of this year. You know, you have The Woman King, a movie about Emmett Till is coming out called Till. You have the second Black Panther coming out. And so it's coming at a good time to just be like, bam, in your face, Blackness. And so I appreciate that part. But then I got, I guess you could say, convicted. I was like, I'm concerned about what everybody else is thinking and not concerned about my own thoughts and what this movie was for me. And for me, it resonated in so many pieces, just with my own personal journey, just what I'm beginning to learn more about the continent of Africa, how each country has its own stories and its own set of things. And the history that I'm beginning to unfold, because one thing about our family, our parents were never shy of making sure we knew as much as they could about our people and where we are from. They couldn't maybe tell us, well, you know, it was on this street in this neighborhood. You couldn't tell that, right? But to give us a sense of understanding, this is not where our story started. Our parents were very instrumental in doing that. And so with that being said, this movie does get my shark's tooth. It does get my shark's tooth because I am reminded that I am from the lineage of a strong people. To know that I am the descendant of someone who made it from walking from the interior of Africa to the coast, to then having to deal with whatever was happening on those slave camps, then to make it over the Atlantic in one of these ships, then to be sold to whatever slavery plantation that was out there to live as an enslaved person for centuries. I am strong. And this movie reminded me of those things, because you could take it and see enslaved and make it as if it is something weak, but it is not. To go through a life where you were seen as one of the livestock, and for me to still be sitting here right now in 2022, oh, I'm the shit. And I will always remember that. And thank you, Woman King, for being a part of showing that portrayal. I appreciate that. And I will never forget that. So for me, it does get my shark's tooth.
And there you have it, folks. The Woman King is not a classic from the Wright Perspective. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. We really appreciate it. This is the beginning of season 3, and we have a lot more great recaps and discussions to come. Thanks for joining us, everybody.